Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode is Top Strategy RPGs, and I want to thank every one of you that took time to vote in the poll that I made on the channel. There's over 500 votes cast, and Top Strategy RPGs won out for the video of choice. I will follow this up with the PS4 collection, and I will finish the Vita collection Part 2, and then follow it up by the Top Xbox 360 RPGs, which I forgot to do months ago. I've gotten quite a few messages reminding me of that fact, so no new content will be made until all of this stuff is caught up, and I will get this stuff out quickly. I hope you guys enjoy, and thank you for watching. Strategy RPGs are without a doubt one of my favorite offshoots of the role-playing genre. I've been playing them ever since I first experienced it back on the Sega Genesis with the original Shining Force. And I'm going to say right from the beginning, Shining Force and Fire Emblem are my two favorite strategy RPG series of all time, and I do plan to do future episodes focused solely on those series, so I'm not going to mention them in this video. I definitely want to delve a little deeper to some more obscure titles in this video, so just know that if you are looking for a solid strategy RPG series, Shining Force, you cannot go wrong. I own every game in the series. I've finished all of them. Fire Emblem, you definitely can't go wrong. It's still ongoing to this day, unlike Shining Force, and it's definitely one of the top strategy RPG series of all time. So definitely Shining Force and Fire Emblem are must-owns. So I couldn't talk about Shining Force without bringing up what series Sega is currently focused on when it comes to strategy RPG action. This is the Valkyria Chronicles series. And while it may have nothing in common with Shining Force on paper, it swaps out the more medieval swords and battle axes theme of Shining Force for a fictionalized, war-torn version of Europe taking place during an alternate World War II scenario. It's got a lot of focus on guns and military, and a complete departure from the grid-based battles of Shining Force. This focuses on more of a free movement system. They call it Blitz, which stands for Battle of Live Tactical Zones. Basically, you're free from the grid, able to move as many spaces as your points will allow you to go, doing battle with gunfire, snipers, tanks, and the like. I really enjoyed the first game that came out on the PS3. It was remastered for the PS4, this one taking place in the events of World War II. Now, the second one came out exclusively for the PSP, taking place a few years after the events of the first game. The third game was also out in the PSP. We never got it here in the States, Japan only. The fourth one brought the series back in a big way, released for multiple consoles, and this focused on events from the first and third games told from the alternate side of the war. So it was really interesting to see the war unfold from a different set of eyes, a completely different faction. Very interesting games, great strategy RPG gameplay, and there was Valkyria Chronicles Revolution. This is more of a action RPG side story. Still a very interesting game, and I think is a lot better than what the reviews said. However, I will talk about this series in depth in a future episode. You can't go wrong with the Valkyria Chronicles series. They're fantastic additions to anyone's strategy RPG library and definitely well worth it. Before we get started proper, I've also got to give a special shout out and mention to the Luminous and Stella lineup of games. These are strategy RPGs done to near perfection. These are the kind of games that don't do anything new revolutionary in terms of a battle system. It's a very commonplace tactical turn-based RPG. What made these games so special for me personally are definitely the characters, the character development, the way they play off of each other, the strong personalities, the great writing, excellent scripts in all three games. There's a very strong focus on religion and the early days of the church and different factions within the church. There's also the looming threat of witches throughout the games. Now, you never know if these witches are good or bad. Sometimes they might be good, sometimes they might switch sides mid-game. There's some great plot points and plot twists. I've talked about these games extensively in the past, and I've done a full episode dedicating to why I think this series is up there with Shining Force and Fire Emblem as some of the best strategy RPGs ever made. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go back and check it out. This episode wouldn't feel complete to me unless I made mention of how great these games are, so please feel free to go back and check out the older content if you want to brush up on how great these games are. Now, if you're looking to get into the genre or you're a fan of strategy RPGs, you simply must own a PSP. It's an absolute beast of a machine when it comes to strategy RPGs. Laid out before you here are the lineup of Sting games. 3 of these games are in the Department Heaven series of games. They are all loosely tied together and they share an overall universe. In today's episode, we're going to focus on Yggdrasil Union, Knights in the Nightmare, and Gungnir. If you're looking for something off the beaten path a little bit when it comes to strategy RPGs, definitely check out the Sting games because they're all thinking outside of the box in terms of creativity and gameplay mechanics. Starting off with Yggdrasil Union, this is one of my favorite strategy RPGs of all time. This is a masterpiece through and through. Originally a Game Boy Advance game, this was ported to the PSP, and it supports better visuals. The character portraits have been redrawn, much higher res. Voice acting has been added. This is one of those kind of games where you're not going to pick it up and start playing right away. It's got some complex systems involved and a lot of intricacies into the combat system. Now, at its core, it's a turn-based tactical RPG with some card-based mechanics. Please don't let the card-based element turn you away from the game. I know myself personally in the past, if I heard an RPG has card mechanic to it, or it turns me off and I just lose interest. The way their cards are used in this game makes sense. It's not overindulgent and it doesn't interfere with the overall gameplay. The opening of the game has you taking control of Princess Yggdra as she's on the run. Her parents, the king and queen of Paltina, have been slain. The princess has basically escaped with the clothes on her back and the family heirloom, the holy sword. Now in her escape, she runs into the thief Millinor. She meets his band of ruffians. They join forces, and from there it's an all-out assault to reclaim her kingdom. And right away from the first interactions between Millinor and Princess Yggdra, I knew I was going to like this game. The script is now fully voiced, and the voice actors, while not like a stellar performance, they do a pretty good job of conveying the story and the heartfelt emotion. Keep in mind this is a port of a Game Boy Advance game, so there's been some improvements made to the PSP version. The aforementioned voice acting, the better character art, the higher resolution visuals, overall much cleaner look, and some quality of life improvements have been added as well. The characters themselves are almost chibi looking, kind of cute 2D sprites, and it's really something to see these well-drawn, very likable characters, very relatable, slaughter like an entire village of innocent civilians and then justify their actions with the holy sword and it being one step closer to reclaiming their kingdom. There's some definite heavy weight to the story, and it's all morality based and decisions you make, kind of looking back on those decisions and wondering if you did the right thing. The game follows a progression of event scenes where the story unfolds and takes place. The dialogue happens, the voice acting, meeting characters, moving to new locations. Then after talking, you pick your cards for the battle and you go into battle. Just as morale plays a big part in the storyline, it also plays a huge part in battle itself. This is a tactical RPG with no hit points, but hit points and a life meter is replaced by like a morale gauge, and that goes up and down as you fight in battle. Losing battle lowers the morale, so you're able to like withstand a few beatdowns before you actually die. Now the actual game mechanics are really complex at first, but the more you play, the more you understand. Now battles take place on the overhead map, and it's all about troop positioning. The goal and main point of the battle system is all about forming unions. It's about placing your troops on the map in specific locations where you can form unions and unleash critical attacks and use your card special attacks. Now, as the battles begin, you'll see both sides engaging back and forth in a volley of attacks. You don't really have control over them per se as they fight back and forth. However, you do have control over a real-time meter at the top. You're able to change it from passive to aggressive via the directional buttons on the PSP. So there's definitely some strategy involved in knowing when to press forward and when to kind of step back and take more of a defensive stance. The more you attack aggressively, you fill your meter, and if it's full, you can unleash your card's special attack. I can't stress how important troop placement is in this game. There is no action to undo any movement, so once you have chosen, that's your final choice. And like I said, the battle system may seem complex at first, but trust me, the more you play it, the more you'll understand the intricacies. It'll become second nature and you'll really get into the battle system and its deep mechanics. And overall, this is a very charming game with a well-done story, likable characters. The interaction between the characters is great. The voice acting really adds a lot to the overall feel. The environments themselves are nothing really to look at, but I always enjoyed the battle system, watching the volley of attacks back and forth. It kind of had a Dragon Force feel to it on a much smaller scale. Overall, the battle system is very rewarding. The storyline unfolds at a nice pace, and there's definitely some brutal decisions to make at certain points in the game where you must feel justified in your actions. There's some really strong villain characters as well. Leon the Black Knight is known for his cruelty throughout the land, and he will not disappoint in terms of a villain. I absolutely enjoyed my time with Yggdra Union. It's definitely a different kind of strategy RPG, but overall it's done so well that everything comes together to form a really nice game and a nice change of pace for strategy RPG fans. Now, Knights in the Nightmare is one of those games that I initially didn't want to pick up at first because I heard all of the people saying how complex it was, how complicated it was, how much it didn't make sense. It was a bullet hell shooter combined with a strategy RPG. You'll never figure it out. The tutorials are over an hour long. It took me a while to put all that bullshit aside and just get the game and settle into it. I originally picked it up on the DS. I enjoyed it quite a bit. When it came time for the PSP version, I ended up trading in the box set for the DS, which I really regret doing, and got the PSP version. And I've got to say, this game is complex and it's got a lot of systems going on at work, but you've got to give it time. Go through the tutorials, and once you get a better grasp on the mechanics at play, and you really start to wonder what happened at this Castle Aventheim, it piqued my interest right away. I was instantly transfixed by the amazing art, which it came with a art book when the game first came out, and this game has got some of the best art I've ever seen in my life. It's up there with Odin Sphere. It's up there with Vanillaware's projects in general. So much creative artwork and so many enemy types went into this game that you can't but applaud the effort just for an art design alone. Playing as a wisp that is animated by the dead corpse of King Willengard, I'm going through and deftly dodging enemy bullets, all the while animating dead fallen corpses to do my bidding. I must say, don't let the talk fool you. Yes, it's a complex game. Yes, it will take you some time to master, but don't let that detract from how good this damn game is. A masterpiece through and through. Don't listen to people saying you won't understand it. Don't listen to them saying it's impossible to play. It's very much playable. It's very easy to learn once you put the time into it. It will reward you in ways that other games couldn't even think of attempting to. Nights in the Nightmare is a masterpiece through and through. The PSP is the definitive version. It's got some extra content thrown in there. You're able to play bonus missions and event scenarios with Princess Yggdra from Yggdra Union, so it's a win-win. This game is a masterpiece. Buy it, play it, love it. Next up is Gungnir, and this is a really nice strategy RPG in the PSP from Sting, and I gotta say, after playing Nights in the Nightmare, Yggdra Union, it was nice to go back to something and not have to learn a whole new set of mechanics, go through hours of tutorials to understand what I'm doing. This is a fairly straightforward, the most straightforward of a Sting RPG that I've played. Battle system that's easy to understand. There's a few things that make it stand out from the standard strategy RPG, but overall, I really enjoyed this game quite a bit. The storyline in Gungnir is pretty interesting. It has the Empire of Gargandania and the two primary classes that live in this world, the Daltons and the Leonicans. Now, the Daltons are of the upper high society, upper echelon of people, while the Leonicans are subject of harsh discrimination. They're tread upon. They are definitely a lower class form of society, and this has led to a very split world. Now, of course, with the evil Dalton Empire in firm control, there is a resistance group called Esperanza. It is where you meet your main character, Julio, who is the leader of this resistance group that is made up of Leonicans and some Dalton sympathizers. Esperanza has set out to right the injustice that is going on in the world and make it a better place. Now, the game's opening has you attacking a Dalton caravan. Inside, you find a mysterious girl whose name is Alyssa. Once you take her into the fold, word gets back to the Dalton Empire and all hell breaks loose. As this battle is playing out, Julio and the Esperanza crew are nearly wiped out until the demon sword Gungnir appears in the battlefield, giving Julio and Esperanza the upper hand. They're able to turn the tides of battle and escape their lives and Alyssa. Here on out, the story picks up with its twists and turns. There's many different decision points to make throughout the story that advance in different directions depending on the choices you make. The overall art style and look of the game is very crisp and clean. The differences between the rich cities of Daltania and the lower slums of the Leonicans are readily apparent. It's very striking to see the difference in the way people live in this world, and it makes you feel sympathy for the Leonicans and the way they're forced to be lived and the way they are tread upon in the storyline. It's up to you playing as Julio to write this, and I had a lot of fun doing it. The battle system plays out like a fairly normal strategy RPG. However, there is a tactics gauge. This gauge allows you to perform many different actions in battle. To fill the gauge, you are able to take over certain strong points in the map. As you take over these strong points, it allows you to kind of like swap out gear, swap out units for fresh units. It's kind of like setting up little mini bases along the map. As you take these sections over, you get tactics points to add to your tactics gauge. As the battles progress, you're able to use these tactics points for a couple of different maneuvers in battle. The first being the beat system, which kind of reminded me a lot of Yggdra Union, and you're able to line up your troops in a specific formation and able to unleash special attacks and more powerful attacks. The scramble function allows you to make last-minute adjustments in battle, such as dodging incoming attacks and healing up characters at the last minute. You can quite often interrupt the turn order in your battles for your benefit. The scramble function comes in handy quite a bit during the battles. The flow of the missions unfold. You'll watch a cutscene, you'll learn about the story, make decisions, you go into battle, view another cutscene, be able to go to guilds and purchase weapons, armor, upgrades. And the battle system handles upgrades in a very unique way. Your characters themselves don't necessarily level up. It's all about the powering up of your weapons. Now, as you use these weapons, they get more powerful, stronger, and you're able to learn new moves and new abilities for the weapons. So it's all about the proper gear on the battlefield. I really found the battles to be enjoyable. It was nice and refreshing to go back to a much simpler style of battle system, all the while having some depth in there with the tactics gauge and the tactics points. A really enjoyable system. I really enjoyed the overall look and feel of the world of Gungnir. It had really nice visuals, great production values, the music was excellent. The battles themselves can get pretty long and drawn out, but I enjoyed them thoroughly. The look of the characters, the voice acting, the interactions between them, all were top-notch. Gungnir is a fantastic strategy RPG, and almost a return to form of a more normal strategy RPG, which is a nice change of pace from Sting's previous offerings. A great, solid strategy RPG. Fans shouldn't miss out on this one. Devil Survivor Overclocked and Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker are two of the finest strategy RPGs ever made in my opinion. Both are upgraded versions of previously released DS games. Both of these games have content not found in the original releases in the form of extra storylines, scenarios, dialogue, voice acting, other quality of life improvements that definitely make these the definitive versions to own. In Devil Survivor Overclocked, you play as a group of high school students that is confined in Tokyo. The city has been locked down, it's put into quarantine. There's power outages, food shortages, citizens are turned into outright vigilantes. All of this chaos created due to a demon invasion that is plaguing to wipe the city out. It's up to you and your friends to find out a way to combat these demons and save Tokyo from annihilation. Both of these games are set in the Shin Megami Tensei universe, so expect dark, disturbing storylines, very adult in nature. Now, if you've played and enjoyed any of the past SMT games, you'll know without a doubt the star of the show is definitely the demon system in terms of the battle mechanics. Being able to recruit demons, have them fight by your side, being able to train these demons, watch them grow more powerful, and one of my personal favorite aspects, being able to fuse said demons, making them more more powerful in battle. Being that these games are both strategy RPGs, they play quite differently than previous games in the SMT series, but none less brilliant. At its core, the game can be broken down into two distinct modes. You've got map mode and battle mode. You start off in map mode before any battles occur, and this is where you're able to travel around the city and engage in different events and story sections, meeting new characters and finding out more information about what's going on. Early on in the game, you're given a PDA-like device called a comp unit, and this unit is responsible for a lot of the things that go on inside of the game. Now, on your device, each day you must check your email. Now, these messages are very dark and disturbing in nature. They often outline death across the city. It also gives you an estimate on how long it thinks you will survive. Now, this system is referred to as fate. The goal of the game is to survive each day, and it's up to you to prove fate wrong. One crucial aspect of Devil Survivor Overclocked, and you realize just how important it is very early on, is time management. When you're in map mode and you're moving around the city, gathering information and talking to people, oftentimes there will be events with a small clock logo next. If you choose to engage in these events, it will pass the time in the game world accordingly. The game runs on a time schedule, however it's not done in real time. Each of these different story events and sequences that you choose advance by like a half hour, and the days go by accordingly. So you really have to pick wisely on which scenario you want to unfold. Oftentimes if you pick one scenario, watch it play out, and you go back and try to do the other one, it's no longer available because the time has passed. Now, having this freedom to decide which story segments and events you choose to partake in really gives the game a unique feel. Your comp device also has many great uses in battle. You're able to look up demons, look at their stats, upgrade them, train them, make them go more powerful. There's also a demon eBay app where you can engage and place bids with virtual bidders online and try to win different demons in auction. Devil Survivor Overclocked really comes together in all aspects to form one of the most memorable games I've played in the SMT series. Fans of SMT, dark stories, demon fusing, and strategy RPG gameplay, you literally are in heaven. Devil Survivor Overclocked is a true gem. Now, Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker sticks to the winning formula that made the first one so special. A very dark, twisted, mature storyline. Swap out the Tokyo quarantine for Greater Japan. You play once again as a group of high school students, and you are taking part in the newest craze sweeping through the school, signing up to a website that creates random death videos showing you and your friends in various states of death. As bad as this sounds initially, things obviously get much worse and go to shit immediately. Demons invade and you're right back in the thick of it. Now, in this game, you can use your cell phone for many different activities. You've got free events, you've got battles, and once again, the game runs on a clock schedule, so you won't be able to see and do everything. It's up to you to choose which events and story segments you want to unfold. Once again, the dialogue is expertly written, very much like the first one. It's a very dark script, and there's a lot of humor in there as well. It can be dark, but yet it's very morose and funny. The characters are great. Fate plays even more of a role in the second game, where very much like these social links in Persona, the game keeps track of how much you have bonded with other members in your party and keeps track of this relationship. The bonds increase in strength the more you spend time with certain party members, giving way to different dialogue options, different story paths. Things open up based on the amount of time and bond that you have with other characters in your party, giving you different story sequences and overall changing the outlook of the game. I can't really gush enough about how excellent these games are. Traveling around the map, gathering information, getting the dark story, piecing everything together, the excellent demon fusing, the solid battle systems at work, and the demon fusing is just as fun as ever. I could literally spend an entire day just going through and trying out all the different types of demon fusing, seeing what results come from trying to combine different demons, trying to get the best members in your party for maximum damage. The battles are super enjoyable. The challenge is just there. The branching paths, the dark storyline, the extra content featured in both of these games make them well worth it. If you're a fan of strategy RPGs, definitely check out the Devil Survivor games. I couldn't believe how well the SMT formula paired up with the strategy RPG battle system works. It really creates magic, and these games are definitely must-owns. So Rondo of Swords is a really interesting strategy RPG in the DS, and it's one of my personal favorites. The story is definitely not going to win any awards. It's got the familiar backdrop. 150 years ago, there was an evil darkness that a king drove out. Fast forward to the future, this continent of Bravord is divided into 5 different nations. You've got North, South, East, West, and then Central, which is the continent of Brentwald, where our story takes place. As everyone in the kingdom is gathered to lay King Elliot to rest, there is a neighboring empire known as Grand Mears who is threatening invasion. And even though the heightened awareness and total security is on hand for this funeral, they end up attacking anyway and overrun the city. The story builds from there. It's definitely well written. I enjoyed the main cast of characters, the setting, the theme. It wasn't the storyline that had me invested so heavily in this RPG. It was definitely the unique take on the strategy RPG gameplay that I'd come to know and expect. This completely flipped it upside down and gave me something fresh and new to experience, and that is why this game, for me, gets such high marks. It's definitely a massive game on the DS. It's got a total of 2 different endings based on 2 different story routes you can take based on the decisions you make throughout the game. Please don't plan on either of these routes being a cakewalk by any means. This is one of the more difficult games that I've played on the DS. you know you're in for a rough ride when the tutorial hands you your ass. This was a difficult game, very challenging. Even grinding for levels and experience can be hellishly difficult. However, I enjoyed it so damn much, I kept coming back for the punishment due to the route maneuver system, and this is the way this game employs its strategy RPG battle system. Unlike most standard strategy RPGs where you move through a grid and you kind of wait your turn, attack, and then the enemy attacks, and you kind of move based on a set number of points around the grid, this game allows you to use the bottom touchscreen and the stylus and kind of draw or route your own course through the grid-based map. And what's so cool about this is there's a lot of strategy involved when you're planning your route. You can kind of draw your way through enemies and allies alike. Now when you set this course and attack, your character will take off running, and any enemy he passes through on the route you've drawn, he'll attack. If you pass through an ally, based on your character class and specifications, you could heal them as you pass through, buff them up, strengthen them up. It depends on what kind of character you have and what kind of skills you have assigned to the character. It's a very unique take on an old tried and true battle system. Drawing your routes is very strategic. There's a lot of thought that comes in, and it's really fun to watch the character zip around the map and attack at will on your predetermined route. Very much a thinking man's game. In addition to going on main missions which advance the storyline, you're also able to choose to go on errands, and these errands can net you really nice rewards, shopping rewards, very nice items that you wouldn't be able to obtain any other way. However, there is a drawback. Some of these errands can take lots of time, a big investment. If you fail or die, you never get the reward. Sometimes you don't even know what it was. So there's a lot of choice in whether to go on these errands and try to get these items that are going to really aid you in your quest, or just tackle the main missions, all the while passing up on experience and grinding, going through the errands. I also really enjoyed the way this game handles death. Now in Fire Emblem games, if you played the classic way, if you die, you lose your character forever in battle. This game gives you a nice alternative. If you fail in battle, you're able to come back the next round, but your stats are halved. And if you manage to survive this next battle with your halved stats, you will be fully healed on the next go around. It's definitely going to take some real skill to keep your characters alive at half stats, and after you do so and complete the mission, you feel that much more rewarded by being pumped up back to full health. It's a really nice mechanic that works well for the game. Overall, the fresh battle mechanics and ideas really come to the forefront of Rondo of Swords. It elevates what would have been a normally ordinary game to extraordinary status. I really enjoyed the battle system. It was a great twist on strategic gameplay. It works really well. Rondo of Swords at the top of the heap of DS RPGs. Definitely check it out if you're into strategy. Next up we have Gladius, and this is probably one of the best examples of a blind buy that I made that entire generation of Xbox, PS2, GameCube. I thought I was just picking up like a mindless hack and slash game. However, this turned out to be one of the most deep and enjoyable strategy RPGs I'd played up until that point. A very interesting tale is told throughout this game, having a choice of playing two different characters. You've got Ursula, who is the daughter of the barbarian king. Ursula has developed these strange powers that no one in the kingdom can explain. Her father has kept a very tight leash on her and kept her guarded up in this castle her entire life. The other character, Valens, who is a very skilled gladiator, very skilled fighter. He is the son of one of the most powerful gladiators in all of Imperia. The tale picks up in this game for him when his father is murdered. Whichever character and tale you choose, the main story is kind of wrapped around these different schools, and they're all competing for these gladiator games. So there's all these competitions everywhere, and the winner takes all. It starts there, and then it unfolds into a much larger conflict full of like political intrigue, witchcraft. The story really gets out there, but it's told beautifully. Everything is acted very well. It's very strong voice acting, great script. There definitely was a nice budget attached to this game, and LucasArts really followed through and made it something special. After choosing a character, watching some beautiful cinemas, going through some intros, learning all about the world and the plight and what's going on, and you leave the castle for the first time, I was blown away by just how beautiful this overhead expansive map was that's fully explorable. The beautiful vast forest in the distance, the mountain tops, the flowing water, bridges, towns, merchants, everything is fully explorable. It looks amazing. And this is where you start off with your band of gladiators, going from town to town, taking part in these tournaments and trying to win it all. There's a real surprising amount of depth and freedom to the combat system and flexibility in Gladius. After you win these battles, you have options. You're able to recruit or rent different soldiers for use in battle. However, you can also choose for a much higher price. You can purchase them outright and become a permanent member of your party. Your characters move on a grid-based system like in most strategy RPGs. However, in this case, your movement is determined on the size and weight of your character. Small, lighter characters can move farther across the map, while the slower, bigger characters can move only so far. As you do battle and grow more powerful in Gladius, you're able to assign new moves to your characters, and this is really where the flexibility comes into play. So many different options for new moves and different characters and different classes, also factoring in elemental abilities as well. It's very important to choose which moves you want wisely for your each character class. With many different routes to take, you can choose to have your character learn a wide assortment of moves, always giving you a different option in battle, or you could choose to learn a certain number of moves and just power them up to make them more powerful. The choice is yours. I always found that it was best to pick a couple of different moves that you liked a lot and make them more powerful. It really gives you an advantage on the battlefield. Some of the better moves offer transformations, which is more of like the supernatural aspect of this game. You can use special moves that morph you into like wolves and bears. And it's really fun to be, kind of getting your ass handed to you in human form, and then coming back and transforming and then turning the tables and slaughtering your enemies as a bear or a wolf. Man, highly satisfying, very rewarding. Most strategy RPGs have you moving around a grid, and then you attack. You watch your predetermined animation on screen of your character attacking. The enemy might follow suit, and it's back to the next. However, in Gladius, as you begin your attack, you've got a swing meter, which is kind of like a timed button press. Now, a well-timed attack will do much more damage. On the flip side, if you fumble the button presses, you'll watch your character on screen kind of overextend and miss his target. It's a simple mechanic that really weaves itself into the strategy RPG gameplay and really adds a lot to the battles, making you feel more involved, just giving you something more to do instead of just watching a predetermined animation. The swing meter really works well in Gladius' favor. It gives the combat some depth. This battle system, along with the overall theme and setting, the great dual storylines, top-notch production values, LucasArts knows what they're doing. They're very good at telling a cinematic tale. A strategy RPG is not something I expected from them, but they really knocked out of the park with Gladius. Any fan of strategy RPGs definitely should have this in their collection. Next up, we have Tactics Ogre, Let Us Clean Together on the PSP, and this game is the mother of all strategy RPGs. This was based off of a 1995 Super Nintendo game, and this is just an amazing example of the genre done to perfection, in my opinion. You have to have a deep love for strategy, tactics, and slower paced gameplay that these games offer, but this will reward you like no other game in the genre. A deep, politically charged storyline with twists and turns, and basically a storyline that you can shape based on the choices you make. The smallest of non-playable characters have different dialogue options and different choices that can change the story on these choices that you make. The depth in this game is something I have never seen on a handheld system, actually rivaling most console games in terms of just pure amount of tactical RPG gameplay and story and choice options. Man, this game will have you glued to the screen for 80 plus hours. Now, once you finish the game, and if you are a lover of tactical RPGs, there is no question once you start this game, you will not be able to put it down until you finish it. There's a new option that opens up, and you're able to begin a new game, and you're able to go back to all of the different pivotal moments and story choices and go back and replay these, choosing different options, able to see the story from every different choice that you could possibly make. A really nice option that adds so much to the game in terms of being able to see the entire vision the developers had. As much as this game sticks to the purity and fundamentals of strategy RPG gameplay, there's also the chariot system at play in here. It's basically, long story short, a rewind button. If you make a horrible mistake, you're able to rewind up to 50 turns back and fix mistakes you've made. Now, in this game's case, the battles could take upwards of an hour long. It's really nice having this feature to correct a small mistake. Some purists may take issue with this. Myself, however, I welcome it. I'm not the most hardcore. I can admit I've made mistakes, and with the chariot system, I can go back and fix those and continue on throughout the story. This game features a really nice encyclopedia. You're able to go back and read up on any character you've met, getting their full backstory, where they're aligned with, where they're at in the story, where you met them. It gives you a full rundown of all kingdoms, all names, important things are kept in this encyclopedia, and it's really handy to go back and read up on anything, because this story is a complex tale rich with twists and turns. One of the best I've ever played in any strategy RPG. What a masterful game crammed into a small UMD disc, man. I'm blown away every time I replay this at just the sheer depth and size and complexity of it all. One of the forefathers of the genre. This is an amazing game on the PSP. If you're a fan of true tactical RPG gameplay, you've got to have Tactics Ogre in your collection. It's just that simple. An amazing game, a true testament to the power of the PSP, and one of the more enjoyable games I've played on the system. So back on the DS, I played Super Robot Taisen OG Saga Endless Frontier. A mouthful of a title. I absolutely fell in love with the battle system in this game. While it's not a strategy RPG, I couldn't help but just be captivated by this insane timing-based battle system. Finished the game and didn't think much more of it until a few years later. Project Cross Zone came out. Well, this is a strategy RPG, and I was delighted to find that it contains the same battle system from Endless Frontier, just wrapped around strategy RPG gameplay, and I couldn't have been more excited to find out that this was basically a crossover game featuring characters from Sega, Namco Bandai, and Capcom. And when I say characters, I mean like upwards of 100 characters in total, and I don't just mean like some here and there. I'm talking Captain Commando, Street Fighter, Ghosts and Goblins, Strider, Mega Man, Valkyria Chronicles, Resonance of Fate, Virtua Fighter, Ace Attorney, Shining Force, Resident Evil, Star Gladiator, Tales of Vesperia. The list goes on and on. The battle system and mechanics at work in Project Cross Zone 1 and 2 are so over the top and so much fun to play. It's easy to overlook the fact that I have no idea what the hell is going on with the storyline in either game. It involves portal stones and jumping from dimension to dimension. The story seems to take itself very seriously as more characters from different franchises are thrown into the mix, and they are double-crossing each other, and it grows more complex in nature, and I get more confused. I have no idea what the hell is going on, but I don't care when the gameplay is this much fun. The game uses a cross-active battle system where you're going to be moving units of 2 along with a third character that can jump in and attack once per battle along this grid-based system. Enemies are going to be on the grid and you can attack them at will. Once the attack begins, you have an option of 5 different attacks based on button presses and direction. As you're in attack mode and you're landing hits, watching massive combos unfold across the screen, you're able to use the shoulder buttons to call in your third character for your support attack, adding even more carnage into the battles. Now all the while your cross power gauge at the bottom is filling up the more damage you deal. Now once this meter crosses over 100, you can pull off the most insane special moves, madness ensuing. I couldn't help but have a smile on my face the whole time I was playing Project Cross Zone 1 and 2. Seeing these characters from different worlds and different franchises that you never thought you would see together in a single game appearing, no matter how absurd the dialogue may be, it's just so cool to see them all join forces. The second game also adds in some characters from Nintendo, so not only do you have Namco Bandai, Capcom, and Sega, you've also got some Nintendo love in there. Watching them all come together in this fun, frantic, over-the-top battle system is truly a thing of dreams. I would love to see this series continue on the Switch with even more characters, more over-the-top battles, more storylines I don't know what the hell's going on in. Such a treat to play. If you're a fan of any one of these companies, you're going to love this. I guarantee it. Nothing else like it on the market. Great strategy RPGs. So here we have Growlancer Wayfarer of Time, and I remember picking this up along with Ragnarok Tactics, I believe my last 2 purchases for the PSP, and I never have gotten around to playing this damn game, and I have an interesting story. Back in, I think, 2003, 2004, I saw Growlancer Generations at Meyer, which is really a store not known for selling like niche or small print-run video games, but they had it there. It was a shiny box set, it said working designs on it, and I was always really interested, not knowing what kind of game it was, but I always passed on it. And then I remember reading a Game Fan one day, and I saw like a 4-page blowout on Growlancer Generations, I believe for the PS2, and it looked so damn good, and the way they described it as being such an addictive strategy RPG, I immediately put the magazine down, went in my car, went to pick it up, and sure as shit, it was gone. Just my luck. Months I'd seen it in there. When I'm finally ready to pull the trigger on it, of course it's gone. So I never really have had a proper introduction to the series. I've always been curious and admired it from afar. And luckily, Erik Landon RPG, who is an expert on the series, and he is here right now in-house to share his thoughts on the series that he loves and adores. So take it away, Erik.
Hey man, thanks for having me on. So I want to talk to you guys about the Growlancer series. However, there's no way to talk about this series without mentioning first the Land Racer series, which started back at the early 90s with a release called War Song in North America on the Sega Genesis. That's the only one in the series we ever got until Masaya Games, the developers and creators of this series, went their own way. They separate ways from the developers, who were actually Careersoft, also known previously as Team Career. So Careersoft first developed the first 2 games, and then they were a commercial breakthrough in Japan, even though we only got one. Land Racer series is a series of grid-based strategy RPGs. Very good, very obscure, very important in the history of the genre. That's why I thought it was worth mentioning. Land Racer, however, like I said before, went its own way, and after several titles, they had a fight with Masaya Games, Careersoft, and so they created their own little company, absorbed later by Atlus. And so, Growlancer was born. So you could say Growlancer is a spiritual successor of the Land Racer series. Now there's 6 main games in the Growlancer series, however the first one released on the PlayStation and then later ported to the PSP, we never got it, which is very confusing because working designs later localized Growlancer 2 and 3, Growlancer 2 The Sense of Justice and Growlancer 3 The Dual Darkness, released on the PlayStation 2. They decided to bring them over in a small collection called Growlancer Generations, which is this one right here. However, it baffles me to know that they didn't include the first Growlancer for whatever reason. It's just weird. And to date, we still haven't gotten that first game in the series, and yes, it's a little bit necessary to understand at the very least Growlancer 2 The Sense of Justice, which is a direct sequel. However, these games are not grid-based strategy RPGs anymore. These were now real-time strategy games, where you pretty much have a bunch of characters at your command. With the menus, you select their actions, the directions you want them to move to, and they will carry them by themselves. Of course, you can interrupt the flow of battle to bring up the menu and change action or change directions, but you cannot directly control any of the characters. So after Working Designs brought over this collection, they went bankrupt. That's right, this was the very last RPG released by Working Designs, and after a few games later, they went bankrupt and we never heard from them again until Gaijin Works, but that's a story for another time. After Growlancer 3, we got Growlancer 4. This was originally released also on the PlayStation 2, but was later ported to the PSP, and that's the version Atlus decided to localize to North America. This is the one most people are familiar with. If there's any Growlancer that's slightly popular, is this one. It's a brutally hard game. Well, the other two were also extremely hard, but this one stands out like crazy because it's so unbalanced and the difficulty spikes are like crazy here. However, it's still an amazing game, and if you can put up with those difficulty spikes, you'll love this. Amazing writing, amazing character development, amazing art style, amazing music. Finally, we got Growlancer 5, also known as Growlancer Heritage of War, which was renamed that way to the North American release because the original version in Japan was called Growlancer Generations. That's right, they decided to call it Generations now. So to avoid confusion with this one right here, they renamed the game as Heritage of War. This game is a masterpiece, it's my favorite in the series, strongly recommended to death in my channel, and it's a game that's one of my all-time favorite RPGs ever of all consoles. Now this one had a stronger story than these two, stronger character development because you play this game through several points of view, 4 different prologues until you jumped to the main story. Very political, very well written, amazing characters, excellent story, excellent music, and the battle system. It was still real-time strategy, but with a touch of action. This time you could directly control your main character. You will still have to give orders or give commands to the other characters, to your party members. If you didn't, they would just act on their own, just hack and slashing their way through. So it's a combination of action with real-time strategy. Very well done in my opinion. And after this we got Growlancer 6, only on the PlayStation 2, exclusive to Japan, because this game was a commercial fiasco. It didn't sell well at all. Hell, the entire series never sold well in North America. Atlus just pretty much gave up and didn't bother localizing the last game in the series. Such a tragedy. Anyway, that's it for the Growlancer series. Amazing games, give them a chance if you can. They're totally recommended for the hardcore players. Totally recommended the entire series, both Langrisser and Growlancer. Amazing series. Alright, that's all, man. Thanks for having me on once again.
Ah, son of a bitch. This game is now looking a little more lonely than ever. Thank you, Eric, for the history lesson, and I look forward to grabbing the games when I can, for sure. So to wrap things up, and I'm definitely going to have to do a part 2 to this video because there's a lot of games that I still want to talk about. We got Grim Grimoire on the PS2. Now this is a really interesting game from Vanillaware, and I believe the only game that hasn't really been revisited. I know we got Muramasa updates, we've got Odin Sphere updates, Dragon's Crown just came out recently, 13 Sentinels has been really successful. This is kind of a forgotten gem in the catalog of Vanillaware titles, and it's a very interesting game. So I haven't played too many real-time strategy games, but if this is any indication of the quality, I'm definitely been missing out. This is a fantastic game that combines excellent storytelling with some great edge-of-your-seat gameplay. The story on Grim Grimoire kept me interested throughout. You play as a young girl named Lilith Blonde, who is a magician in training, where she has come to the Silver Star Tower to perfect her craft. And this school is led by the famous Gamaldor, who once defeated the Archmage. Now this Silver Star Tower used to be the home of the Archmage before he was defeated, so therefore there's still quite a bit of mystery and intrigue surrounding this tower, many unsolved mysteries, and still considered to be very dangerous. When Lilith first arrives at this tower, you spend the first few days getting to know all your classmates and your instructors. Now in a somewhat shocking twist, by day 5 a disaster has struck the academy and everyone has been killed except Lilith Blonde, who returns to the first day when she arrived, retaining all of her memories. How could something like this have happened? How is she back at day 1 with all of her memories intact. It's up to you to take control of Lilith and go through and redo these events. What I really enjoyed about the story in this is that the cast of characters is kept fairly small, but what is there is very likable and very fleshed out, and it's really cool to see Lilith kind of go back through and replay these days, and all the while taking different action each day, learning more about the characters. In all reality, one of the highlights for me personally was watching Lilith progress each day, each time you go through the timeline. Watching her manipulate her peers, she really becomes quite crafty as you replay these sections and learn more about the story, and each of the layers get pulled back with each subsequent playthrough, and more of the characters are fleshed out. You learn more about the instructors and what role they play. It's overall a really fascinating tale, and it's told very well through Vanillaware's trademark cutscenes. So of the few real-time strategy games that I've played, it's kind of all action all the time. There's no pausing or breaks or turns. It's all real-time. However, in this game, there is a brief pause when you pull up the menu to decide on tactics or order your troops to do a certain task. It's definitely not the commonplace for real-time strategy games, but in this game, it does help because there's a lot of stuff going on, and it can be a little bit overwhelming at first. It's nice to get a break to carry out functions. As the game begins, you'll notice the stages are multi-tiered. You're able to scroll in any different direction for quite a ways. They are representing the halls of the Silver Star Tower. The visuals on the actual stages are kind of bland, which is definitely forgivable when considering the amount of action that's going to be going on at any time. You begin by summoning your minions, and you do this by gathering energy from the crystals laid throughout the stages. Now this task is carried out by your non-fighter units such as elves or fairies. You must send them out to the points on the map, collect the energy. They will in turn grab that, harvest it. Now when the mana is brought back to your mystic circles, you begin stockpiling, and when you have enough, you can start summoning your fighter units and send them out into battle. As the action unfolds, it does get really intense, watching your fairies fly around and shoot arrows and chaos unfolding everywhere. And as the game goes on, you're going to be unlocking new tiers and new magic classes, summoning giant dragons, ghosts, and the game kind of runs on the rock, paper, scissors formula that most strategy RPGs adhere by. Glamour, alchemy, sorcery, and necromancy, and some are stronger against others. So some of your allies, some of your creatures that you summon are going to be stronger than others, and some are going to take up more mana to summon. It really does hit that sweet spot of sending units out and attacking, keeping units back to guard your base and guard your magic circles. This really was a nice change of pace from a lot of the turn-based stuff that I had been playing up until this point. The screen gets filled and chaotic with beautiful sprites. Everything is drawn so well. Really not much slowdown. Music is pretty good in the background. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It was a breath of fresh air. Hadn't really played anything like it to this point. Seeing the beautiful art style come together in the cinemas, the voice acting and the storytelling, combined with this really compelling real-time strategy gameplay, difficulty that ramps up as you go on. If you think a real-time strategy game might be something you enjoy, this is a great starting point. Vanillaware has never done me wrong. Grim Grimoire is no exception. I'd love to see this make a return, maybe on the PS5 with some beautiful HD, high-res visuals. It would look amazing in action. Definitely go back and check out Grim Grimoire on the PS2. It's a fantastic game. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in for yet another video. I'm really hoping to get things picking up on the channel, and this is definitely going to require a part 2 because I haven't even talked about some of my favorites like the Vandal Heart series, Jeanne d'Arc on the PSP, Summon Night was a great one. There's so many more strategy games I'd like to discuss and go into further detail. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching, and as always, Games of War is absolutely nothing without you.